All right, so let's talk about India's budget for 2026-27. And look, this is way more than just a spreadsheet of income and expenses. It's really a roadmap for the future. Today, we're going to unpack the big ideas and the ambitious plans that are set to shape the entire nation's economy.
Okay, so at the very heart of this whole budget is this one really powerful phrase you're going to see everywhere: Viksit Bharat, which translates to a developed India. And the guiding philosophy here, well, it's kind of like this delicate balancing act. They're trying to fuse this huge ambition for rapid economic growth with a solid promise of inclusion, making sure that progress actually reaches every single corner of society. It's really less of a policy and more like a national mission statement.
So the big question is, how does this grand vision actually translate into action? Well, here's our game plan. We'll start by looking at that Viksit Bharat vision. Then we'll dive into the real engines of growth, powering up manufacturing and boosting the services sector. And finally, we'll get down to the foundations, investing in people and farms, and of course, building the infrastructure that connects everything.
All right, let's start with that big picture. Before we even get to the numbers and the money, what's the core philosophy that's driving this entire budget? I mean, what does Viksit Bharat actually mean in practice? Well, it looks like the government is signaling a really clear shift in its approach, and it's all built on these four guiding principles. First, action over ambivalence, basically prioritizing decisive moves. Then there's reform over rhetoric, which is about focusing on deep structural changes, not just talk. And people over populism, aiming for long-term well-being instead of short-term gains. You put it all together, and the ultimate goal is to transform the hopes and aspirations of over 1 billion people into real, tangible achievements. You can't build this massive vision of a developed nation on a shaky foundation, right? So this budget strategy for economic stability really rests on three critical pillars. First, sustaining a high growth rate, somewhere around 7%. Second, keeping inflation moderate and predictable. And third, maintaining strict fiscal discipline. If you can get these three things right, then you've got the solid ground you need for those ambitious long-term plans.
Okay, so the vision is set, but how do we actually get there? Let's dive into the blueprint for growth, which is all about strategy and some really deep-seated reforms.
So this blueprint, it's supported by 6 key pillars. It all starts with people-centric development and building trust in governance. Right after that, there's a huge focus on making it easier to do business and just improving the ease of living for everyone. And all of this is held up by smart fiscal management to keep that economic growth going and to strengthen its very foundations. Each one of these is absolutely a crucial part of the overall strategy. Okay, but a high-level principle like trust-based governance can sound a little abstract, right? How does that actually work in the real world? Well, here's a perfect example. Instead of treating every single importer with suspicion, the policy now recognizes those with a long, trusted track record. And guess what? They get fast-tracked. It's such a simple, practical shift, moving from a default of suspicion to a default of trust. And believe me, it makes a huge difference in the ease of doing business.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about one of the main engines of this whole growth plan: manufacturing. The focus here is really on powering up that Make in India initiative to create jobs and build some serious self-reliance.
Now, the mission statement here is a really crucial pivot. The goal isn't just to be the world's factory for, basic goods anymore. The focus now is on climbing the value chain. It's all about strengthening domestic manufacturing of high-value, technologically advanced products. This is about building intellectual property and strategic independence, not just being a place that assembles parts made somewhere else.
And this strategy is super targeted. Just take a look at these flagship schemes. You've got the India Semiconductor Mission 2.0, which is a massive push into high-tech electronics, to reduce reliance on foreign chips. Then there's Biopharma Shakti, and Shakti means strength, which is designed to make India a global hub for pharmaceuticals and biotech. From logistics to chemicals, each one of these is a really deliberate investment in what they see as the strategic industries of the future. But that brings up a really important question. What about the absolute backbone of the economy, the small and medium businesses? With all these huge plans and complex rules, you have to ask, how can they possibly keep up?
Well, the budget has a pretty innovative answer for that: corporate mitras. Just think of them as professional guides. In fact, mitra means friend. The idea is that the government will help connect these experts with MSMEs, that's micro, small, and medium enterprises, to help them navigate all the complex rules affordably. It's a really targeted support system to make sure that growth isn't just a big city, big corporation game.
And they're not just offering advice, they're backing it up with serious capital. A new dedicated SME growth fund is being set up with a whopping 10,000 crore rupees. Access to capital is so often the biggest hurdle for small businesses, so this is like a direct injection of fuel aimed squarely at helping them scale up and compete.
So, yeah, the big takeaway from manufacturing, it's all about this shift from just volume to real value. It's a strategic push to build a more resilient, high-tech industrial base, right here in India.
But look, manufacturing is really only one half of the story. The other key economic engine, and you could argue it's India's biggest global advantage, is its massive services sector. And the strategy here is all about diversification and specialization. The budget is calling for new hubs for medical tourism, innovative university townships. But what I find really fascinating is the focus on the orange economy. That's the creative sector. The plan is to launch content creator labs for animation, visual effects, gaming, and comics. They're calling it AVGC in 15,000 schools. That's about nurturing the next generation of digital artists and storytellers. So the message here is crystal clear. The future of India's services sector is all about leveraging digital platforms to connect its incredible talent to the entire globe. It's about solidifying its position as a world leader. Of course, none of this works if you don't invest in the foundational pillars of the economy, its people and its farms. So this next part is all about building human capital and boosting agricultural productivity. When it comes to agriculture, the strategy is basically two-pronged. Step 1 is to boost farmer income by promoting more high-value crops, and Step 2 is all about bringing farming smack into the 21st century. We're talking about integrating AI with platforms like AgriStack, which is basically a huge unified digital database for the entire farming ecosystem. The goal is to give farmers powerful data and insights so they can make much better decisions.
And finally, a modern economy needs modern arteries to function, right? I mean, high-tech factories and amazing digital services are pretty useless if you don't have the roads, ports, and data networks to support them. And that brings us to the absolutely massive plan for building the nation's infrastructure.
And the scale of investment here is just staggering, 2 lakh crore rupees. And this isn't just some top-down federal program. It's a massive financial injection sent directly to state governments for their infrastructure development. The whole idea is to empower states to build what their local communities and economies need the most, whether that's rural roads or new urban transit. And listen, this isn't just a one-off spend. It's part of a sustained, long-term trend. Just look at this dramatic jump in public capital expenditure, or CAPEX. That's just the money spent on creating physical assets like roads and bridges. It's projected to skyrocket from just 2 lakh crore back in 2015 to over 12 lakh crore by 2027. I mean, more than any other number we've talked about, this chart right here shows the sheer scale of the commitment to building the physical foundation for a developed India. So, we've seen the vision, we've walked through the blueprints, and we've looked at the key investments. We're talking high-tech manufacturing, AI and agriculture, and a massive infrastructure overhaul. And it all comes back to that central theme, that balancing act between ambition and inclusion. Which, of course, leaves us with that final, crucial question. With these as its guideposts, where will this path actually lead India by 2047, its 100th year of independence?